Y'all ready? We ready. Welcome everybody to another edition of I Am Student Athlete. I'm your host, Jabril Rashad, and this is episode 5 that we're going to be doing, actually streaming today. But even though, we've been at this thing for a long time now by just doing commentary and post. But today I got a very special guest that's going to be joining us today. He played football professionally. He's a philanthropist in the community. He does a lot of things with me, and we're going to do something different today because he's on another show that I host as well, but I had to get him out of his comfort zone. So I'm going to be bringing him to the stage. I want to welcome him in right now. This is my guy, none other than my man, Tim Jackson. I want to welcome him to the show. I Am Student Athlete. Brother, I am glad to have you aboard. This is going to be something a little bit different from us because I know normally people see you when we're doing our show, Metaphors of Love, Are We Listening? However, a lot of them don't know that you are actually a former NFL, CFL, World Football League, Nebraska Cornhusker defensive back. And man, it's an honor and privilege to have you in this format, doing it this way where we can talk about sports, because this is what we do in our downtime that a lot of people don't know. So welcome to the show. I Am Student Athlete, my brother Tim.
Thank you, Jabril. I appreciate it, my brother, and thank you for having me on. It is different from our regular because we have been doing, like you said, the show before, the podcast, and to be here in this different position. Been here many times, but it's been a while, as a matter of fact. Last time I did something was a radio show, so definitely grateful, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, without question. I had to do this, man. It's like, we've known each other, man, for well over 20 years now. And, for me to talk about a lot of the things that I've been embarking upon, and you being a part of that, even when we're not on screen, so to speak, I wouldn't have it any other way, man. You've been one of the most consistent human beings that I've ever dealt with, man. And I'm glad to call you not only a friend, but a brother as well. And, we connect from that gridiron, man. And so, the only thing I hate that we couldn't have joined forces on that gridiron, man. I think we could have made some magic happen,
Well, it's been special.
Special,
I promise you.
Yeah, but nonetheless, we're here, man. And I want to start in the genesis. I want to start with you in the very beginning because I want to bring the audience up to date to my or when you put up on my screen, I'll put it like that. I remember you all playing again a very cold game, and it was for the Big 8 conference championship against the Oklahoma Sooners. And I was watching Oklahoma play, and all of a sudden you jumped out on the screen, and I just recall them saying Tim Jackson from Dallas Skyline. And I was like, okay, well, here's an individual. And of course, they put your eligibility up and your year and everything like that. And this is in 1988. So you jumped out on the screen with me, and I'm saying to myself, wow, here's a guy I've never heard from. He's from Dallas. And normally I've tried to, even back in 84, of course, when they had the Dallas Morning News and, all area team and so forth, and, with the Tim Browns, the Ricky Dixons and everybody of this magnitude, I try to keep up with that. But I never saw your name until that particular day, one Saturday afternoon or Saturday evening, should I say, when you all played Oklahoma in Lincoln, Nebraska. So I don't know if you took the traditional route, but I want you to be able to tell your story, because what we try to do, of course, on this platform is try to reach our youth with stories that could enable them to continue to live out their dreams, because not everyone is going to get recruited highly. Not everyone is going to be a 5-rated star player. Some of us are going to have to take the back road. So I want you to share with the platform how you was able to take a different route and wind up still on your journey of athleticism and sports, arrive at your destiny in life.
I'm I'm gonna kind of start back even a little bit further. You know, when I first started playing football, I was second grade, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. The kids were bigger than me. I mean, it was older than me. I was second grade. They were fourth and fifth grade, and they wanted me to play because, you know, I was pretty fast. And so I got out there and playing. We playing tackle. That's sandlot football. So I'm like, okay, these big kids out here, and they play me. First time I played, I was at center. I was hiking the ball, but you know, you play center, then you caught the ball too.
Right.
But it was my friend James Mellock. He was the quarterback, and actually he was pretty the strongest one. That kind of got me started. And so we did a whole lot of things growing up, man. You know how it was when you was growing up. You know, you running track. We made blocks. We running track. You know, we doing high skip and jump. You know, in the third grade, you know, skipping across the street, all kind of stuff. So I started out there and actually played with the Comets for a little bit. I came late. My mom and got me in late, so I was too late to get on the regular. So they made another team. They had a B team, and we were 12 and 13. We were playing 13 and 14-year-olds. And they moved me to quarterback. So I was playing quarterback when I first started out with them. And so I played quarterback. They wanted me to play quarterback again. But, you know, I had a feeling. I said, you know what? I ain't going to be 6'3", 6'4", and I'm looking at the NFL. And my favorite position was running back anyway. So I started playing running back at Oliver Holmes. So I went to Holmes and then went to Skyline. And it was funny. I have a story. When I was first grade in seventh grade, there was a couple of fellas that was actually ahead of me. I was in 13 because nobody knew who I was. He's like, who is this kid, right? And I was smaller than them as well. So they just put me in maybe third string running back. So on our first game, I think we were playing Gaston or somebody like that. I had 2 carries, and one for 81 yards, another one for 70 yards, both touchdowns. So I'm walking back in the locker room, and this is kind of typical of what went on. I guess this must have been my pattern. This is my journey. So I go in the locker room and they say, hey, who was that 31? Man, he was really running that ball. Man, you see that? He only got 2 carries. They should give him the ball more, right? They said, who's that 30? Who's that 31? I said, that was me. They was like, no, it wasn't you.
Right.
so
Right.
I was too little, I guess. You know, they like, nah, it wasn't you. Could have been you, right? I was like, right. Okay. I just went on to my locker, you know. I ain't worried about it, didn't say a word, and just kept doing things. As a matter of fact, the other 2 guys ended up quitting that season, and I was the starter by the end of the season. That's kind of how life went with me, my whole life. I've always rose above and kind of been the one that's kind of counted out and came out of nowhere, kind of like what you're saying. So even in high school, the same thing. I was shut down corner, and I played running back too. I ran for my junior year, average 185 yards a game my junior year. I mean, my senior year, I was playing running back and then got injured in practice, but I was shut down corner too. So in cornerback, I never let anybody catch a ball. So no one ever caught a ball on me in high school. So with that, I was shut down corner. So I got scholarship to Kansas State and TCU. But to go back to student, we want to talk about that. I was a math major. I was very gifted in that area. You know, one of the more important things, I had 2 goals in life. And it started out when I was 6 years old. I was going to be a professional football player, and I was going to be doing something with math. So I knew that at a young age. I had those goals, and I knew I was going to be doing something with math because I was very skilled, because I was always the grade ahead. I was the one they put me in a workbook and set me to the side. So I was kind of a nerd too. So that was the other thing. I was kind of that nerd mixed with an athlete. So, you know, love to do math and numbers and stuff like that all the time. So it's funny how life, you know, just your journey. And so at Skyline, you know, you had a major, and my major was math. You learned college thing, but I wasn't used to, say this, I wasn't used to just being by myself. I've always been coached. And so, well, I was kind of isolated. When I was isolated, you know, I do the work, but, you know, you weren't motivated. By that time, I'm daydreaming. I'm daydreaming about all the stuff I'm going to do in college and all that kind of stuff like that. So I had to refocus at a certain point when I was at Skyline to actually, you know, get everything done because I was bored. You know, what was going on in class and stuff like that. And so student being the most important one. So I remember my mom getting on me and said, hey, you got to refocus. You're not going to get anywhere if you don't focus.
Right. Absolutely.
So, yeah. So I got back refocused and started excelling because I was always the top student in the math class all the time. And I got kind of rejected when I first got on and saw that there was students in my classroom who had like Hewlett Packard calculators, you know, and we didn't have them. The black kids didn't have them.
Right.
It was like 3 or 4 kids that had that, and they could actually move faster than us.
Right.
That kind of hit my heart. It took away some esteem I had in math at that time. It's funny, you know, when you look back on things and how when you feel like somebody has an advantage over you,
right,
it kind of takes the air out of you a little bit.
Right. True that.
And so that was one of my first lessons of learning how to overcome when things are not seem like they're fair. You know, like how is it fair that actually you allow them to have a calculator, they can program the problems in and do the problems real quick because it's already programmed.
Right.
Whereas if we got to work through every last one of them.
Right. Well, let me ask you this here real quick, because let's kind of go back a little bit, because you mentioned an organization that is very well known, very well popular in the Dallas area. And if you're not familiar with this particular organization, then I don't know what to tell you. May have been crawled, you know, hiding under a rock somewhere. But you mentioned the organization, the infamous organization, the Cedar Crest Comets, which I myself am a product of that same organization. And it's interesting because we're about a year apart. And it's funny how as little kids, we could have actually been playing in the same organization at the same time, but just never knew it. You know, because I play, in fact, you mentioned something about I guess coming in a little bit late and having to start on a particular team. Well, that sort of happened to me. And when I first got there, they put me at I believe it's like right tackle or guard, I believe. And I remember my stepfather at the time, he said, no, you need to be a running back. So he knew this, right? And they actually moved me to running back. But of course, they had other talented kids like Chris Jackson, you know, that went to Dallas Card, and Keith Shannon, those guys, you know, and the Lacey brothers and all this stuff, right? But
I remember them.
Yeah, and I'm actually up a level. I shouldn't have been with them because they was a couple of years older than myself. So I had to move back down with Larry Jackson, which happened to be Chris Jackson's brother, on a team with Mr. Dave. And I don't know if you remember Mr. Dave or not, but when they moved me down, that's how I wound up in the backfield with guys like Joe Shaw, Ricky Dixon, Jimmy Hackworth, and those guys. So
Ray Willis. Don't forget about Ray Willis.
Yeah, Ray. Oh, yeah, absolutely. Ray, yeah. Plus, Ray went to Skyline. So absolutely, man, we're talking grown names and, you know, phenomenal athletes, man, at that time. So you move from the Comets, and then you went to Oliver, went to Holmes. You're playing running back, and then you transition to Skyline. But at this time, your last name wasn't Jackson. It wasn't.
My last name was Griffin. Yes.
What was the last name again?
Mother's maiden name.
Your mother's maiden name.
Yes.
Okay. And what was her last name?
Griffin.
Griffin. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So everybody knows Tim Griffin.
Okay.
And
so
some people still call me that to this day.
Okay. So for those of you who are listening to this platform today, yes, this is the same individual, Tim Griffin, Tim Jackson, who later adopted his father's last name. Correct.
Correct.
Okay. Well, great. Okay. So now you're at Skyline. Now, did you letter 3 sports, only 2? Because you ran track also, right?
Yeah, I only played 2 at Skyline.
Okay. 2
in
years.
Junior high school, I played soccer too. I didn't play baseball or basketball in junior high school. I just played. I played football and track, and I was probably known more in high school for track than I was football. As a matter of fact,
wow.
You can see your face.
Wow.
You know? And so it was funny. I was known more for track because I dominated there, especially until I got injured my senior year in football. And so it took me a while to recover from that my senior year to get ready for track. But I was I ran a high 47.8, around 47.8 my senior year when I got in shape the last race in district. So, but it took me a while to get back in shape.
That was in the quarter, right?
Yes, that's in the quarter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I know
I love track though. It was one of my favorites. Yeah, but we had some fast people during that time. I'm telling you, if I was ran in any other district or any other state at any time, I would have ran the solo races. I ran most of the relays and long jump.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't do those other events because we had people who were setting national records. You know, I look at some kids sometimes, you know, I ran my fastest time in the 200 was 21.4, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't running 21.4 against the guys who was running 20.2s and 20.4s.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like why run a 200 with, because me, I want to win first place. So
right.
Why win? If you gotta go get first place, why run it? Why run a 200? So
right.
And then the guys was running 10-2s and 10-3, Byron Morrows, and we had so many. We were blessed with so much talent during that time. I can't think of another time where so much speed was blessed in one particular era. I'm talking about 5 to 6 years. There was an era of that times and speed was just at a high premium every single year after year, all in the same district, like same two districts, about two districts we had that was going on. It was the district you was in with Carter, and district we was in, Roosevelt South, South Oak Cliff and Skyline.
Mm-hmm.
And so it started about 1981 when Skyline joined the game with Charles Simpson, some other guys at the time, and Hash Smith from Spruce and stuff like that, right?
Right.
And so they joined the game too, and you guys had Kimball, Wilma Hutchins, and Carter, right? And
right.
so we talking about those numbers had the fastest people in the nation almost every year. I don't know what was in our water, but that's what we had. So,
right. Right. Well,
it's a beautiful thing for track and football during that time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that you ran against one of those heralded names, Roy Robot Martin, as well as Van Auto, or we call him Auto Man Randall from Wilma Hutchins, who happened to be my classmate. And also, it's funny because one of the guys that you played with later on became my roommate in college, Billy Smith. I know he was a part of Dallas Skyline as well, running track and so forth. So shout out to Billy and Roy and Van and all those guys.
Without a doubt. You talking about also Byron Morrow as well.
Michael Cannon, you remember Mike?
Yeah, Michael Cannon.
Yeah, Mike. Well, you know Mike,
brother, who was a little bit younger than us.
Yeah. Well, actually, no, Mike actually finished in '83.
Yeah, I'm talking about Michael Cannon's a little bit older, but his brother also.
His brother. Right. His brother. Okay, yeah. Mike and I, we grew up in Single Hills. We went to Robert L. Thornton together. So yeah, I'm very familiar with Mike. But those guys was tremendous athletes within their own right. So now let's. So your senior year, did you get a chance to play? I know you played with Billy, but did you get a chance to play with Dante Jones?
Yes.
He's a former Skyline Raider as well, right?
Yeah, Dante.
Who later went to Oklahoma and then the Chicago Bears too. So you was because he would have came out in '83, so this would have been your junior year. Okay, yes. So going into your senior, you said you got hurt, missed a little bit of time. Do you think that had an effect on your recruitment? And if so, and this is one of the reasons why I'm glad you mentioned education, that you was a math major. Man, where would you at when I was at UTEP? I didn't want to take that. I would have majored in business, right? But they told me, said, well, you got to take a statistics course. I said, okay, I'll just go criminal justice. But anyway,
in my math major, I took probably statistics. Nobody else did. I was the only one in the class by myself. That's what I was talking about. I felt kind of alone in a way because nobody was taking probability and statistics but me, because I had an interest in it, because I was doing stats and numbers all the time anyway. So I wanted to kind of know how to predict things. So it kind of helped with financial advising, which I ended up majoring in college. So it's funny that you did that, and it would have been great. You know what? What'd be great for our kids coming up is to learn how to combine together and study the subject together. That's the one thing. It took to the end of my career, end of my school year, to learn that about college. If you can group up and start talking about the subject, because when you either teaching someone or you learn from someone, you learn it faster.
Right.
So
right.
Yeah, we learn faster as a team, as a group, of talking about and discussing things.
Right.
And I was such a loner at that time.
Well, what's interesting that you say that, because that's part of what I call geometric progression, is when it's a geometrical progression when you have more positive people versus negative people, it normally drowns out the negative people. And so I think that theory definitely holds true. So again, you being a math major, which is no lightweight thing at all, because I was just talking about in one of the commentaries how we come in with a number and we exit with a number. It's all about mathematics, right? And algorithms. So for you to be able to recognize that in your early years, man, because just like your mom, my mom was an educator herself, and they had this thing, actually what they call the books of a who's who, but they also had something that was called Young People's University back when I was attending Elementary at W.W. Bushman that I was a part of, right? And only very select students was able to get into this Young People's University is what they called it. And I was chosen and selected because I carried a very high grade point average. But man, when I got into sports and started feeling myself a little bit and all that, man, I started kind of neglecting my academics. And my mother had to come to me and say, hey, you got to make a decision because you coming home with the first time I got a B, she was all on it. Like, okay, make up your mind what you're going to do. So I'm, so happy that we have and had mothers in our lives. I know you lost your mom a couple of years back or whatever. So, my condolences always. And I had a chance to meet your mom, wonderful lady. So she was definitely a priority in your life and made an impact. So I'm glad you talked about that. But let's kind of transition and get from Skyline High School. Oh, I asked you the question about if you thought that had any effect on you being recruited at that time, because you had to take the
yes, it did actually. I had Nebraska, which I ended up being at, eventually. But I took a round journey. I had Nebraska, SMU at that time. SMU was still strong at that time before they got in trouble. And actually, I just had a whole lot, everyone. I never was recruited really by Oklahoma, though. So Oklahoma really wasn't a part of my deal, even though they did send a letter. But a strong pull was from Nebraska and SMU at that time because they was leading the Southwest Conference at that time. And Nebraska was leading the Big Eight along with Oklahoma. So they was the two teams that was doing that. So it was those were my strongholds that was coming through. And it was, of course, other places as well, too. All the way out to West Virginia and stuff like that was recruiting me at that time, too. So it was most of the Southwest Conference, most of the Big Eight as well, except for Oklahoma, I would say. And then and so when I got injured, I had all those posters, and you have all those posters and letters you have
right.
on the wall and everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
The Pony Express and the Husker Power. I had those two sitting up on my deal because I was planning on playing running back, right? That's my favorite position. I love corner and I made a decision because of Skyline though. At Skyline, a coach, he didn't control his offense as well, and we could actually bring in the play and we could run the ball. So whoever brought the play in got the ball. And so that told me that, hey, I'm getting control. I can get control and not get the carries I need, or the offensive line is not blocking that well, right? And so that gave me a concern. So about, which position I was going to play, because it could be predicated on me making it to the pros, whether I'm going to have the right blocking and picking the right institution and stuff like that. So then I was limited to TCU and in Kansas State at the time. Kansas State just went to a bowl game, Independence Bowl. So I thought they was on a rise. They was recruiting Texas like crazy. So I was like, okay. And then when I get there and find out, we were actually doing pretty good because Dave McGinnis was the one who was recruiting me. He ended up being the defense coordinator for the Chicago Bears later. Very good coach, right? And he was good because his defensive end played really well when I got to Kansas State. He got smaller defensive end, but they played well because he was such a good coach. And he was a good recruiter too. So he was selling me and everything. And I remember I went on a trip, right, to Kansas State. And this kind of got me in. And little kids were walking up. It was a bunch of girls. I think it was one boy or something like that. They came up and said, hey, you play basketball? And at the time, Wayman Tisdale was playing in Oklahoma.
Right.
It was actually
good dude. I had the good fortune of meeting Wayman when he was in Sacramento. Good, yeah. Yeah,
good dude. So he was there. I mean, he wasn't there. Yeah, they were there because they were playing a basketball game. And so they asked me to play basketball. I said, no. They said, you play football? I said, yes. And they was like, ooh, can we have your autograph? And all of them. I had guys walking around me. They didn't come to them. They came to me for whatever reason. So I don't know the reason. It just felt good. I signed the autograph and all that kind of stuff. Really
right.
And gave them some advice because that's what my parents had taught me. My dad and my mom had taught me, hey, each one teach one. And so to always, when you can enlighten someone or spread some good nature to someone, you should do so. And so I did at that time and smiled and all that kind of stuff. And then Coach McGinnis, of course, seeing all that, he said, yeah, I said, you're a star. I can see it already, right? So, just a little, he's smooth. He's smooth. Dave McGinnis is smooth, right? So I was like, okay, this is a place to make you look out for me, right? I was thinking about TCU. And so Yeah, I went there and I chose Kansas State at the time, and I was like, okay, we're gonna build them up and we're gonna rise above, right?
Right.
And Nelson Nicholson, who's passed away now, he went to South Oak Cliff. He played cornerback, and he was a senior when I got there, and I rode with him up to Nebraska. He was one of the hosts for me too, right? And another guy named Gerald Alfman, he was from St. Louis. So that was my host, you know what I'm saying? They were good nature, and I rode with them, and they actually kind of looked after me a little bit. Nelson Nicholson did when I was up there. So, and God, he rest in peace and rest in heaven, I should say, because he's a real good brother, real good heart. He lived over about 5 miles,
Okay,
near that area.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So let me ask you real quick though. Is this coming out of Skyline or was it in JUCO?
It's coming out of Skyline.
Out of Skyline.
Okay. Skyline to Kansas State. I signed with them, and then the first year I redshirted, and I got and then when I was redshirting, because I worked hard, and that's one thing kids understand. I worked hard. I always worked hard. I was the hardest working guy in the off season, in the track season, and during the football season. I always worked hard to be the best I could. So we had like a cost crunch. I'm gonna skip back to Skyline. I'm gonna come back up to. We had a cost crunch we used to run in the off season, right?
Right.
There was a guy named Benny who ran cross country, but eventually, before the season was over, before the spring is over, I would lead that race, and I was a sprinter, but I would lead that because I would work hard enough to be the top.
Right.
We had wrestling matches. I would win the bone race. We had a bone. We would wrestle for a bone, and we would wrestle guys our size. I would always make sure I won. So with that, you got that attitude. Hey, to be the best you can be, and you keep driving till you are.
Right. Absolutely.
So I've always had that in me, and I've always my dad always pushed that as well too.
So did you leave Kansas State? You wound up leaving Kansas State, going to JUCO? Because you went to junior college, right?
Yes, I did. So my freshman year, I was at Kansas State, and I got they wanted me to switch to running back, as a matter of fact, because I was playing running back on a
KSU did.
Yeah. So I was making everyone miss. So they like, the offensive coordinator wanted me to go there, but I was looking at. He was like, "Hey, can you switch to running back?" And then the secondary coach is Zach Taylor, who ended up coaching in the NFL as well too, didn't want me to switch over. He wanted me to stay in corner, right? So, and so they told me to sleep on it and make a decision on what I wanted to do, right? So I was like, okay. I was looking at the offensive line. I was like, no, offensive line didn't block too well. That's not gonna go well. So I already had the experience from from the Skyline sometimes as well too, because our linemen weren't that big. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna stay at cornerback because I can control this situation. So I stayed at corner. That my redshirt freshman year, I started at corner, right? I didn't start at the beginning of the season, but I took over, And so by the end of the season, mid-season and on, I was starting, and I started against Nebraska, as a matter of fact. So I played against Nebraska. That was I knocked out. I think it was Doug DeBose. Sorry about that, Doug. But he was running a counter. He ran a counter. I was at corner. I came down the line. He came through. He cut back, and he cut right into me.
Right into you. And that was the collision. So for the kids who are listening to this program, or a parent or a mother, father, or what have you, we're talking to Tim Jackson, former Nebraska NFL defensive back, CFL defensive back, as well as the World Football League. And we're talking to him today about his journey in the world of sports and how he arrived to his destination. Sometimes, it could be traditional. Other times it may be unconventional. But he never gave up. He never lost focus. He went from being placed on the offensive line to running back, from running back to defensive back. And so he never gave up. He never gave up on his journey. So I want you to finish sharing with us, because now when you leave Kansas State and you go to junior college, from junior college you get recruited again. And so now you do wind up at the place right here. And I like showing this picture right here, man, because you was, hey man, that was the thing back in the day, man. I had one of those too, man. I mean, but that's so.
You know what's funny though, Brill? I didn't realize it. It's funny about us. We don't know everything that our hair can do. I used to pick my hair out. And now that, I just put grease on it and comb it, right? My hair curled up like that anyway. I actually knew it at the time. When I had new growth, I could touch up under my hair was curly, right?
Right.
I'm like, we Black, we don't know about a hair because we picking it out because we come from the natural and the fro thing, right?
Yeah,
but you know what? Once I learned that, I was like, man, I could have been doing this from the beginning.
Right.
My hair naturally kind of does that anyway when I grow it long.
Well, you know,
it's just amazing, man, what we learn about ourselves.
Well, judging from this picture right here, I thought you was competing with Dion, man. To be honest with you.
I started before Dion, but yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah. Well, anyway, you wind up in Nebraska with some of the greatest talent in college football, and you played with guys like Broderick Thomas, just to name a few. Yeah, the Sandman. And I think it was Neil Smith was there, right?
Neil Smith was there as well too, and
okay.
And even a young guy that came in, Mike Kroll, who played in the NFL for Denver Broncos for a while.
And what about Danny Noonan? What about Danny Noonan?
Danny Noonan, I got there. Danny Noonan was still there, but he'd already played that year. I got there.
Okay,
he just had his year, his football fall, and I was there in the springtime.
In the springtime, okay. So he left before you got there.
Yeah, he was still there for for the spring.
For the spring, okay, gotcha.
Yeah, for school, but he was out. He was done playing at that time. Eligibility was over.
Okay,
so he was drafted that year when I got there.
Like a flash from the past, because I do recall him from Nebraska and getting drafted by the Dallas Cowboys, as well as yourself. And so, as I said before, yeah, absolutely. And as I said before, you flashed on my screen because. I know you remember this guy right here, the late great Ricky Dixon. And what's funny, that's the night they played you all in Lincoln, and I'm watching the game. I think Ricky had like 2 picks in that game, but you played a heck of a game yourself. And I know that this is from a different time. That's you tackling Charles Thompson. I think
next year.
Yeah, the following year, right? Exactly. Yes. And I see where they say boom a sooner. So that's you on the tackle against Charles Thompson. And so again, you jumped out for me because I followed the Oklahoma Sooners long before Ricky even got there. And in fact, there was a time when I thought that I was going to play for Oklahoma. I had really 2 on my list, was Oklahoma and Oklahoma State out of the Big 8, right? But I got recruited. I got letters actually from Nebraska. Now, they never, Tom Osborne, his recruit, they never came to my high school at the time. But I got recruited by Kansas State, Kansas. I received opportunities to go visit at Kansas, Oklahoma State. With them, at the time they had Pat Jones, the head coach. They actually recruited 2 of my high school teammates that happened to go there. But as I tell my own story, I just decided not to go in the Big 8 because the high school district that I played in, District 958, with the Highland Parks and North Mesquite and the Garlands, they were just like the Big 8, man. Ran the option, and I'm playing strong safety. And so I got tired of playing against the wishbone. But Ricky and I had grown up, and he kind of was hoping that they would have offered. They did offer one of my other teammates, Anthony Wright, that went on and played in the Big Ten with Iowa. But I was a little salty. I probably would have went had they offered me, but they didn't, which was okay because I was able to go back and do what I really wanted to do by moving to corner. And that's how I wound up signing the Western Athletic Conference. But as it relates to you again, I mean, you jump on my screen. I see you make these plays for Nebraska, and I know you was kind of in and out a little bit. I don't know what they was actually doing because I saw a talent there. And usually I kind of got my eyes on scouting the talent that's from my local area because I'm always, even back then, I was always rooting for us, man. Yeah, that brother went there. That brother went to this high school. Yeah, this is what we're doing, I even remember a guy like Fred Stromeyer. He went down to Texas and BYU lit him up, and I'm like, oh man, they from the hood, they from the house, you on national TV, and this is the best one, So I was always rooting for the homeless, man. Always rooting for the homeless. So later on, when you leave Nebraska, well, actually, let me stay right there.
Before you say that, let me say this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
And I'm gonna hit Ricky Dixon too. I had a thing with him. That was a journey in Nebraska. You think about the black quarterbacks during that time coming up. And at the time, Nebraska had the first safety they had was Russell Exbert, played with New Orleans Saints.
Mm-hmm.
And he was the first strong safety. They had never had a black free safety before.
Mm-hmm.
I was the first starting black free safety in Nebraska.
Wow.
So the first one, and also I was the first one to play for and against Nebraska as well, too. So it was a journey actually changing that to having it happen, because it had to break that barrier of being a kind of like a black quarterback, being the guy who ran the offense.
Sure.
But I forgot that they actually had me. What happened? They ended up helping me. They had me play in 3 positions, and so I was playing strong safety, free safety, and cornerback that spring. I just got there, so I'm learning all 3 of those. And I'm a JUCO, so they want you to get there and try to start as quickly as possible.
Absolutely.
They playing me in 3 positions, so I go from there, and they want me to start at corner. Now I was our best bump and run defensive back. I could bump and run. But the coach didn't want me bumping. He wanted us to play off, and he had a certain technique he had. And
Sure.
I'm used to playing on the right side. I didn't play on the left side. I played on the right side all the time. So bump and run was easy to me on the left side, but playing off and doing the little stutter steps he wanted me to do was messing up with me seeing the vision of the play. So it took me a while to adjust. I was trying to adjust to that. And I just moved it. I wasn't playing in the spring. I played a right corner. I didn't play left corner. And I was planning on playing free safety. And then they said, hey, we want you to play left corner because some guys had got hurt. So I was starting in left corner when I started the thing. And then they decided they were still practicing me at free safety because we didn't have no depth there. I wasn't practicing strong safety anymore. It was free safety and corner. So, I'm learning all our plays, and we put in more plays in the fall than we did in the spring.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm having to catch up. And I had to put blinders on during that time and rise above the coach, because the coach made sure that every mistake I made was pointed out in the film room. And so what I said, during the time was that the coach was trying to make me a perfectionist. He wanted the best out of me. See, I could have looked at it a different way. I could have said, hey, the coach is talking to me. He don't want me to know. I said, he's trying to make me better. So it was my perspective to help me to keep rising. I chose to look at it differently than I could have. And so I said, okay, he's trying to make me better. So when I got there, it wasn't going to be no denying, because I'm going to learn it to the T. I'm going to be a perfectionist. And I always, worked hard at being that. And so when I got there, when I arrived, I got there fast. So that's why you saw me. You saw me blinking, because I was coming through. They were trying to hold me back. I took over. And so, and it seemed like a resistance, because there was a big difference. A good person, Blac, a real good person. That's the guy who started. A real good person. Had his game as well, too. But that was a big difference. The coach knew. He said to me when I left, you're going to have a chance to play pro ball. He won't. So he knew the difference at that time. Yet, time was, still sharing at that time before I took over. I feel strongly, and everybody on Play Greenbrier sometimes will tell you, if I played the whole game against Oklahoma that year, we won that championship that year. That was our best team. But I wasn't in there at the time. They scored it.
Oh, so you all actually won the national championship. When that would have been the 88 season. Okay, I think it's a little bit better. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I had to plug my charge for my phone back. I'm sorry about that.
That's okay. So you all won a national championship in 1988?
No, we didn't. We won the Big 8 championship that following
The Big
year.
8, okay.
We lost the national championship to Miami in 88.
To Miami. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Because they defensive line, I will tell you, looking back on it, their defensive line blew up our offensive line.
Right.
So,
right. I got you. Well, they had, Miami had a bunch of guys that went to the draft, and Jerome Browns and all those guys. So, and Russell Maryland come out. So at that
Russell
time,
Maryland as well.
Yeah, they had a crop of people. So, so now when your college career comes to a close, what are you thinking now? I mean, because now you're coming up on the 1989 NFL draft. And were you invited to the NFL combines, or were you just like myself? I was a pro day guy. I didn't get the invitation to go to the combine. But were you a combine, or did they come to the campus to scout you out. What was that like?
I had an invitation to the combine. I also had an invitation to Aloha Bowl as well too. But the coach at the time, like I said, he said he gonna send Blazik to the deal because I didn't know about it until one of them, Charles Fryer let me know that actually I had been invited, but he didn't know why I wasn't going, and I didn't know either because I hadn't even been told. So I went and talked to Coach Darlington, and Coach Darlington at the time said, "You're gonna have a chance. You're gonna play pro ball, and Mark Blazik, this will be his last time playing. So I'm gonna send him to the Hula Bowl, and I didn't put you on the list to be so you could go."
Wow,
yeah,
that's crazy. That's crazy. It's kind of like what I felt. I had an opportunity, and it would have been last minute to go play in the East-West game, but it was such last minute, and they were still wondering like who was going to get this invitation, one of those kind of things. But I never heard from them. I mean, that was just something that was said. You know, fortunate when. And you probably can attest to this when you know that you should be somewhere that can make your situation even better or get your draft stock higher. And then there's like a person or persons that has, the politics start.
Has another agenda. Yes.
Yeah.
Another agenda. I won't say what his purpose is.
Right.
His agenda was totally different than actually the best interest of me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, look here, we're coming up on 15 minutes of the show here, and I want to make sure I get this in.
Okay.
So you're not invited to the combines, but nevertheless,
I'm invited to the combine.
I mean, you're invited.
I went to the combine.
Okay, you went to the but not to the Aloha Bowl.
Yeah, I wasn't. Yeah.
Okay. So 1989. Which I'm very familiar with because that's actually the draft that I should have come out in, but I came out the following year because I redshirted. 1989, you're drafted in the 9th round by America's team, the Dallas Cowboys. So let me be specific, the Dallas Cowboys. And so what was that like leading up to draft day? What was that actually like for you and your family, man, hearing your name, Tim Jackson from Nebraska, drafted in the 9th round? I don't care what round, because all you want is a chance, an opportunity. I don't care if you're drafted, undrafted, you just want the opportunity. What was that like, you being selected in the 9th round by the Dallas Cowboys? And I'm showing a picture of you actually in training camp with the Dallas Cowboys.
Man, it was, that's home. That's the team I used to sit in front of the TV on the couch watching every single Sunday and telling everybody else to leave me alone while I'm watching because I need the Cowboys to win. That's how engrossed I was in Cowboys. So it was just a dream coming true, right? And I had a feeling they was drafted because I already said, because Jimmy Johnson had, scouted and told me a little bit, right? But I know for sure. You don't know what's going on. I'm in Las Vegas at the time at the Latin Hotel, at the time it was one there, and I'm there with Broderick Thomas, Neil Smith was there, Deion Sanders was there. We all took a picture together. Mm-hmm. So Neil Smith there, Derek Thomas, who's gone, not with us anymore.
Yeah. For sure.
So and some other guys actually in that group, probably the top 5, most of the guys from the top 5 or 6 are right there too, and then some other guys who actually was in the league already were there. So we had this big picture we took as well too, so, I'm waiting, those guys are gone. They got drafted real quick, right?
Right.
So I'm waiting around, and then I go up to my room because somebody said you had a call you need to take. So I go up to my room, right? And I pick up the phone and it's Gil Brandt on the phone.
Right, Gil Brandt, general manager.
Gil Brandt from the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, general manager of Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, we selected you the first pick of the 9th round. Welcome, to the Cowboys. I'm like, whoo!
Right.
So I'm coming home, and so at the same time I'm doing that, they announced it on the radio, and my mom's sitting in the car listening on the radio. She's in the car because she had finished work or something. I don't know what it was, and she on the thing, and she hollering out loud, and people noticing it. I'm like, how do these people know about it? Interviewing my mom, they interviewing her,
right,
on the spot. I'm like, how the heck they know where she was? Because I'm looking at the rooms, I'm looking like, man, they must have followed my mom, found out who she was, followed her, and heard her screaming, and then went in. So how's it feel you know, my son is coming back home. My son is coming back home, right?
Right, absolutely.
And so, you know, kind of came back home. My mom had balloons and cake and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, I've been gone. You know, you gone when you go to college. You gone till when you leave high school until you come back, right? So,
right, absolutely.
I'm gone all this time, and I get back home. It's like, you know, you get the little short visits, but most of the time, man, you staying back there to you know, work on academics and work real hard. So to get back home to Heroes Welcome, all my family's there and everything else, and they all so excited and all that kind of stuff. So, what a blessing, you know, to have that day, to your dream to come true, and then to go in and get a chance to go to camp and make all those things and work really hard and, you know, get a chance to check this out. So we're in the hotel. I'm walking with Everson Walls, right? Me and Everson Walls are walking. We're in the hotel. We're in Denver. So I get a chance to meet Tony Dorsett at the time too. You know,
right.
I've talked to him a few times since that time. But Tony Dorsett, it was the person I used to mimic when I used to run the ball, right? So I get a chance to meet him. We talking all that kind of stuff because he's playing for Denver now because he got traded because of Herschel Walker.
In '87, I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm walking in. You know, we walking. Me and Everson Walls walking. We get ready to go up the elevator, and they get ready to come at Everson Walls, right? The kid, all these people get ready to come at Everson Walls. So he hollered out, "Hey, there's Herschel Walker." So he making fun, but he also getting some relief. And all the kids turn around and start rushing at me.
Wow.
Herschel Walker, Herschel Walker. I was like, no, I'm not Herschel Walker. So I'm not going to perpetrate.
Right.
I'm not no Herschel Walker. And he said, who? I said, Tim Jackson. Oh, Tim Jackson. I'm like, I'm just a rookie. You know, I ain't nobody. You know what I'm saying? That's how I'm looking. I'm like, I'm just a rookie trying to make it, right? And they all bum rushed, and they all wanted autograph, and it was a long line. They stayed there for a long time, you know, and I'm just talking to the kids and all that kind of stuff. Everson Walls was laughing as he's going up the elevator, of course, you know.
Right.
He'll bet. He's like, yeah, I got you, rookie. You know what I'm saying? So,
right. Absolutely.
Man, I just tell you just the joy you have, man, and the camaraderie you have in all those different locker rooms.
Tell me about it.
It's just
Tell me
beautiful,
about it.
man. That's one of the most beautiful things that we have, you know, the journey we have and the people you meet. And then when you meet genuine good people, you know, there was a all right locker room. My best locker room was actually Washington Redskins.
Right, because hold on for a second, because I know after Dallas, you didn't go to Washington.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know you played the San Diego Chargers as well, right? So what were 3 NFL teams?
Yes, it was.
Okay.
And
so Washington was your next. Okay.
Yeah. So I had a journey, without a doubt.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, again, I mean, I always say, you know, we may embark on something, you know, at one particular moment in time and place, and then we disembark how to transition us and turn us into or give us another opportunity elsewhere. And sometimes that's the way it happens. But every journey you should learn something from. There should be something that you're getting from, whether if it's 3 years you with a team or 3 weeks. I think there's something that you can get out of it, you know. And I'm always looking for the Jews, and I'm always trying to remain optimistic when I'm given certain opportunities. So you was given the opportunity, not first of all to be drafted, to get another opportunity to go to the Washington Redskins and then the San Diego Chargers. And along that path, you wind up going to the CFL. You may want to check your phone just a little bit. I'm hearing some feedback. I don't know.
How's that?
Okay, that's better. Much, much better. You get an opportunity to go to the CFL and you play for Toronto, Hamilton, right?
Yeah, I played for Hamilton. And so in that was getting to Hamilton, you had to start. So the place I took, he was American. If you was an American, you had to start. They would have one person usually that didn't start that could make the team. But on the most part, if you came from the U.S., you have to take somebody's spot.
Right.
Usually a vet that already been there. The guy's spot I took, he was rookie of the year before.
Wow.
Yeah. So that means you got to come in blazing.
Wow.
You got to have confidence, and you got to know you're gonna make it because, you know, you taking somebody's starting spot straight from the top. So when you come in camp, you better be on it.
Right.
So I saw many guys come up there who had played in the NFL 5 and 6 years. Good friends of mine. I won't mention, but they're good friends of mine because they came to our team as well too. I know a few of them, and they didn't make it.
They didn't get a chance.
Yeah, one of them played the Cowboys for 7 years.
Wow.
Another one about 5.
Wow.
Yeah. So
and it's interesting. It's interesting that you say that because when I left the Giants camp, I had a chance to go to the CFL. And what's so funny was at this particular time, because you had, and I see that you had an opportunity to play in the World Football League too, but the World Football League was actually being inaugurated the following year. And the CFL, because I had all my information shipped to Toronto, that's what's strange about it. But they was already in season. And so my agent and I at the time, well, we didn't pursue it because we was thinking that the World Football League was coming around the corner. And so we should just prepare to the World Football League, since that's what you said, it would be probably a little bit tougher in the CFL because their season had already started. And so at this time, I don't know, I could have continued. I know I could have, but it's this thing called burnout in politics. And when you lose the love for something that you've been doing for so long, not anything that has to do with your talents per se, only because someone made a decision, because someone scouted another person to say, well, we got a little bit in this person because we took the time out to scout him a little bit longer. No, I think that you should be able to compete all the way through. And that was my mindset. Whether or not that was the right approach to take, because a very good friend of mine even mentioned, that I should have continued trying out. And for me, looking back on it, perhaps, but I think also for me, I remember telling myself, I was like, to me, that's more like a desperate man move for me. I feel like if you want me, give me an opportunity, a real opportunity. Now, if I don't perform the way I'm capable of performing, then that's one thing. But to sit here and tell me, as I oftentimes, I kind of repeat this story about when I was in camp, one of the draft picks they drafted, we go, sometimes DBs got to go one-on-one with one another before we go one-on-one with the receivers. And just because I make him look bad, he's a draft pick because he didn't have the footwork to keep up. That was one of my greatest assets, was my quickness, my footwork. Made him look bad in practice. Then Bill Belichick jumps on me and gets on me, and I knew then. I just smiled. Oh, it's a political game, So when we played this game in high school, that's one of, I think, for me, Little League in high school was the purest form of that game, where you really had the love for and the passion for the game. Everything else was all politics. So this is what I was just saying, in that regards, you having the opportunity, going on a long journey unconventionally, but never giving up. And I want to emphasize that to the young people out there that's listening, watching this podcast. This man never gave up to reach his destiny. He controlled what he could control. He can't control when they go into the meeting rooms and breaking down film, discussing all these things. I mean, you put the big hit on Herschel Walker, in practice, we talked about it. You did what you needed to do. They bring in a guy who they drafted, maybe a little bit higher, whatever the case may be, or bring in another free agent like a Thomas Everett or whoever. These are the kind of things that happens. But in the long run, while playing, what was your career in the CFL? You played how many years in the CFL?
Played about it was 4 going on 5, so it's almost a total. I almost played a total of 7 years totally professionally.
7 years.
NFL and CFL together. Man,
that's a perfected number. 7 is a perfected number that you was blessed, and then to walk away with healthy, to walk away with
that's a blessing.
Walk away with your mind intact. We hear about these things, man, with brothers, suffering from CTE, loss of memory, and things like. And even as I put the picture up with the late great Ricky Dixon, suffering from ALS. And it was very sad to see what he had to go through because he was such a big hitter, hard hitter, where you both was.
And we had a conversation, Jabril, that year that they beat us in '87, and we came up because we we're from Dallas, we know each other, right. And so I came up, we gave each other love, and I said, hey, you've been holding this down. I said, I'm taking over next year. It's mine next year. And so I did exactly what I said I was going to do as well. So
absolutely.
And I know.
And I know that you did, my brother. So because we're coming up on the last 10 minutes of the show. So with everything that you've gone through, everything you know now, everything you've experienced, I mean, like I say, we are embarking on something even bigger and greater with I Am Student Athlete, and you are very much a part of what I do and vice versa. And we're trying to help these kids. So if looking over your life, if you had to say something speaking to the youth, say something to them regarding their journey. You got a lot of new things that's happening now, decision making, whether if it's going to a university or making NIL decisions, something that we didn't get a chance to benefit from when we was coming up, right?
Would have been nice.
But what would you say to the youth today, Tim?
One is to be focused, and that it's a journey. And that in that focus, be your best. No matter what you're doing, what decision you make, just be your best at it. Work your hardest. Try to work as hard as you can, because it's not always the best talent, the person with the best gifts. It's the person who works hard, who's due diligent, who studies. I had many coaches and stuff to come by and make sure I was the leader. They say he's quiet, but he actually talks. They say I talked on the field most of the time. I was known for talking on the field. But everybody has a way, your personality. Be the best at who you are. Not trying to be somebody else, but if you see yourself in something that has a good image, follow it. It's okay. Follow the good part of whatever it is. So if you have a person, don't mark somebody as fault. Don't follow their faults. Follow the good things that they have in them. And so what I always look for, I had a whole bunch of people I looked to who gave me great examples. Jim Brown, his work ethic, how hard he worked. When he got on the field, he walked slow back to the huddle, and then he came out hard every play, right? He gave it his all. So Muhammad Ali, the way he danced and he prays and he gave his best the whole time. He always said, I'm the best, right? He believed in himself, right? So his belief in himself was the biggest thing I took from Muhammad Ali. That believe in himself and believing, that God has you, and that in that you can do anything you put your mind to. He had to. He had trying times. He went through trials and tribulations. So we're going to have pitfalls, but we got to rise above them and rise through them and keep fighting through to be your best, because we're going to have them. We have troubled times no matter what. And that may be your whole journey, your whole life. As you rise up, you're going to have something that actually is in the way. They're just challenges. It ain't a problem. Those are not problems. Those are challenges. Challenges for you to become better. This is how you sharpen yourself. This is how you get that edge. This is how you rise up and become the best, because when you get a challenge, that's the time you rise above. And so for all you out there, don't let a challenge hold you back.
Well, you heard it from the great Tim Jackson. Don't let a challenge hold you back. Don't be afraid to step up. Don't be afraid to maximize your full potential or limit yourself. Go for it. Don't give up. Keep moving forward. Young people, you got a lot of opportunities, and you're hearing it from one who's gone down that path towards success. And not only is he a success, or was he a success on the gridiron, but he's a successful business person and in life, a successful person, period. And he and I work closely together on a lot of different things. So I had to introduce this side of him, because he's one of the most humble individuals I've met as well. And a lot of this, we talk amongst ourselves, but he's not a rah-rah guy. He's not going to go out there and blow the horn and do none of the stuff that Deion Sanders would do. Sometimes you have to pull it out of him. But at the same time, there's an appreciation for guys like him, because, I'm reminded like Ward Dunn, he had the same kind of quiet disposition. He just went about his day, worked hard, and let his play show on the field to exemplify his skill set. And that's what Tim Jackson did. Well, Tim, my brother, this has been a wonderful conversation. Thank you, man, for coming on, for joining us on